Within the concentration and extermination camps of the Second World War, there were many different areas established to execute and slaughter as many people as possible. Within Buchenwald concentration camp, there was an ex-shooting facility where prisoners were led into, believing they were getting a medical examination in this room, which looked like a doctor's room. But when they then had their height taken on the measuring device, a latch behind the victim opened up and a pistol poked through, with an SS guard pulling the trigger. Thousands died in this manner, and some camps did not even have the established facilities for prisoners to live inside of, as they were sites with the sole intention to mass murder as many people as the SS could. The second deadliest camp found within occupied lands during the Second World War was Treblinka, and it's estimated here that between 700,000 and 900,000 people were killed inside the gas chambers at the camp. But inside of Treblinka was a harrowing structure that prisoners were forced into, and they knew that as they were being driven through this, that their death was probably imminent. Welcome to the fortress. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Construction on Treblinka began in May 1942, and by mid-July the camp was finished. It was split into three parts. The first area was for use for the staff who worked at the site, as well as a few prisoners who worked in different workshops. The second area was a reception place where prisoners would be gathered, and the third part was the extermination area, where the gas chambers as well as mass graves were found, and also the wood used in the cremation of the victims. Treblinka was a site which focused all around death, and as soon as prisoners got off the train at this stop, then they were driven as quickly as they could into the gas chambers. There was no admitting into the camp, and there were no selections. All went to their deaths in the gas chambers. There were 3 gas chambers in operation to begin with, and each had the capacity to kill between 300 to 500 people every hour, and then shockingly in September 1942, a further 10 gas chambers were constructed with bigger capacities, and they allowed between 1,000 to 2,000 people to be killed inside each of these every hour. And they allowed between 1,000 to 2,000 people to be killed every hour. Every day the transport trains arrived carrying 30 to 40 different trucks, which contained up to 7,000 victims, and they would within minutes of arriving at the site be driven to their deaths. The victims were taken out of the carriages, and they were then forced to strip, before they were then pushed as quick as they could towards a gas chamber, which was advertised as a bathhouse. Most died within 15 minutes of arriving at Treblinka. Joining the reception area to the gas chambers was a part of Treblinka known as a tube, or die Schlauch. This was a camouflaged passageway which was roughly 90 metres long. It began behind where the women undressed. There was a sign above the passageway which read, "To the showers." The aim was to trick the victims into going to their deaths quickly, and the SS guards referred to this passageway as Himmelsstrasse, or the road to heaven. One former SS Travnicki man who worked inside of Treblinka claimed about the tube that, naked and shorn, they went down a narrow path bordered with barbed wire past the cashiers. The victims undressed in the barracks before being driven down this part of the camp, and they then handed any valuables they had over to the cashier, who received them, and these items were ultimately stolen and were absorbed into the coffers of the Third Reich. This was part of the tube, and men and women who resisted were then chased by SS guards and were rushed through the tube. Once victims passed by the cashiers, they arrived at a building with no windows, and they were led in. This building was meant to look like a bathhouse, and they were pushed and driven in by force. One former prisoner said of this part of the camp that, next all the men and women, old people and children, had to fall in line and proceed from camp number 1 to the gas chambers in camp number 2. Along the path leading to the chambers, there stood a shack in which some official sat and ordered the people to turn in their valuables. The unfortunate victims, in the delusion that they would remain alive, tried to hide whatever they could, but the German fiends managed to get everything, if not on the living, then later on the dead. Everyone approaching the shack had to lift his arms high, and so the entire macabre procession passed in silence, with arms raised high, into the gas chambers. In this manner, hundreds of thousands of people were driven to their deaths through the tube to the chambers. Another survivor of the camp said, "Behind the gate we find ourselves in quite a large square, with barracks on 2 sides. Opposite the fence and the gateway through which we had passed is a fence with a small entrance in the corner. This is the gate to the Avenue of Death, which leads to the baths in Camp 2. Down this avenue, completely naked, they took their last walk. My dear wife and children, father, mother, brothers and sisters, together with millions of Jewish men and women, they never came out of the bath. Their sacred bodies were heaped on stretchers and were thrown into the infernal fires. Later, when I was working on the rooftops of Treblinka, I had many opportunities to watch that last walk of our naked unfortunate people. Mothers holding their little ones in their arms, older children at their sides, young women with their hair already shorn, covering their breasts with their hands, or several together, arms linked, all running as quickly as possible through the row of German and other guards who laugh at them and mock them. Quite often one or another of the victims was struck on the head with a whip or rifle butt and collapsed in a stream of blood. Those were horrible scenes from hell. The tube was a prominent part of Treblinka, and it was an important part of the killing process for the SS. Another former survivor recalled about the Avenue of Death that, opposite the platform where the barracks stand begins the road to the gas chambers known as the Schlauch. This road is planted with small trees and looks like a garden path. Down this road, which is covered with a layer of white sand, all must run naked. No one returns from this road. People driven down the road are beaten mercilessly and stabbed with bayonets, so that after they have been driven down it, the road is covered in blood. A special commando, known as Schlauch Colonna, cleans the road after every transport. They spread fresh sand so that the victims will be unaware. The Schlauch road is not long. In a few minutes you will find yourself in a white structure on which a Star of David is painted. On the steps of the structure stands a German, who points to the entrance and smiles, "Bitte, bitte." The steps lead to a corridor lined with flowers and with long towels hanging on the walls. The road to heaven, or the Avenue of Death, as it was known, was a terrifying part of Treblinka, where people were sent to their demises inside the gas chambers. This was a path where many people took their final moments, with many SS guards and camp officials driving them towards the chambers quicker. The sheer amount of gas chambers at Treblinka meant that within minutes of arriving and disembarking the trains, most people were killed. The road to heaven was protected with barbed wire and many other methods so that the inmates could not escape, and it aided Treblinka's reputation as a killing factory. It's estimated that up to 900,000 people died inside the chambers at Treblinka, and every day thousands were being killed. As the Soviets approached from the east, the Germans took the decision to destroy most of the evidence relating to the crimes of Treblinka, and even local families that lived nearby were killed to prevent information getting out about what truly happened there. When the site was discovered, the extermination zone had been levelled and had been planted over, but pieces of bone in the soil, human teeth and lumps of human hair were discovered. It was the second deadliest site of the Second World War, and many of the stories of those who were killed at Treblinka remain untold. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.